Beautiful in and out. Someone who is smart, who is intelligent. So I want like the total package.
The No Ordinary Love Podcast with Josephine Onah. Every relationship is unique and has its own rhythm and melody. And what worked for them may not necessarily work for you. Welcome to another week here at the No Ordinary Love Podcast. I am so excited to be here today. I am going full Nepo this week. I'm here with my sister, Josephine Onah. Very, very excited. Our topic for this week is red flags. And it's actually inspired by the Who the Fuck Did I Marry? I don't know if it's a show or episode or series, 52-part series on TikTok. I did listen to bits and pieces of it here and there, and I'm very excited to talk about the Olympics of red flags that we all deal with when we're out here in these dating streets. But let's get started with getting to know Josephine a little bit. First of all, Josephine, how was your weekend? Did you do anything special this weekend? Did you go anywhere special this weekend?
Well, I actually had a guest come by. My sister is visiting from the UK, so we tried to start off the visit with something exciting. So we just did a train day trip out to New York, which was less than 24 hours in New York, but it was really eventful, a lot of fun. We went to the Brooklyn Museum to see the new Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys exhibit, which is called Giants. It was really educational, a lot of African and African American work. So just attaching the two diasporas. It was really good. It was very educational.
Yeah, I loved it, being that I'm your other sister. I was there as well. And I just felt like it was like a global conversation amongst the Black diaspora about the kind of challenges that we face in life. And it was very poignant. And I left moved. And I definitely left with the idea. It was very empowering to see kind of what is possible and the ways in which we use our voices. So if you're out there in New York, if you can get there, if you're stopping by, I think the exhibit is on for a few months. I definitely highly recommend it. It was a great time. It was just nice to be in the city as well. I hadn't been in New York for a minute, so it was good to do that. And we had some great food as well, which
I think we managed to check out some of the restaurants that are part of that Netflix High on the Hog documentary. We had some amazing, and we also went out to Red Rooster, which is also a really good time. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Yes, it was awesome. So for the people who don't know you, let's get to know you a little bit now. So how, up until this point, can you share a little bit about your career, kind of what you do, and just a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm currently an HR professional. I live in the DMV area. I went to school in Virginia, did my undergrad at George Mason University. I went to Georgetown as well for a master's in HR. I currently work at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I'm originally from Nigeria. I grew up moving around quite a bit. I was born in Sweden. So that's a little bit about my background. I enjoy traveling a great deal, and I love solo trips especially.
Yeah, I know you just had one to Iceland. How was that?
Yep. It was a really good time, very meditative, very calm. It was great to go in the winter, but I would highly recommend maybe going in the summertime. I think it might be even more enjoyable, but very beautiful country.
Yeah, I definitely have it on my bucket list now that you told me all about your trip. But maybe share a little bit more about like your dating life and your dating background, just broad strokes, kind of how, what has your experience been like dating in general as a young person here in the DMV area?
I mean, it's been interesting. I think if you have the right attitude, it can be a lot of fun. DMV is very diverse. You have a lot of really well-educated people. If you're open to just, like, you'll always be able to get a date in the city, I would say. Whether or not you're going to find long-term love, that's a little complicated. But being able to have someone to go out to the movies with, go to dinner with, go dancing with, it's definitely accessible. We're known as being a really transient city, so we get a lot of people coming through DC all the time. and people who want to explore the city and get to know what's fun. So I would say it's been not too difficult as far as finding dates, but finding long-term love, trickier. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate now that I'm back out there dating. There's, like you said, the city's very transient. You do meet a lot of great people, but where people are in their lives, what the kind of relationships they're looking for, that's a whole other can of worms. And whether they kind of have your set of values that you have is another whole can of worms for sure. Have you experienced red flags? First
Oh
of all,
yeah.
how would you define red flags?
I mean, I think
And
you
what
just touched a little bit on it, like a mismatch of values, which leads to a mismatch of behavior, and on what's appropriate behavior, what's inappropriate behavior. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say ultimately are red flags. For me, it's more behavioral and values. That kind of, because ultimately we are all living the way we want to live, and we all have different experiences. We all didn't grow up in the exact same household, so you're going to have different responses to things. And what I'm finding is that I need to make sure that I'm matching my values and behaviors with someone else that could also understand them, in order to have the best experience. Like, just like you go out there and you're looking for friends, and the people that you vibe with, the people that you jive with, are the ones who have similar values to you. It just clicks, right? So it's the same thing I would say with dating. And so my red flags are generally around unhealthy behavior and people whose values are just so far removed from mine.
how do you see unhealthy behavior? I don't know if you listened to or watched the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series. There were some kind of red flags that I saw there. Like in the beginning of the video, once the couple met, for people who are familiar with it, it's the story of this lady who just before the pandemic started, she was out there dating. I think it was on Facebook, the Facebook dating app or site. I'm not sure exactly which site. She met her partner, and within a couple weeks or so of them meeting, they were already talking about moving in with each other. Granted, it was the pandemic. They were very quick to kind of commingle their finances together, even before they were married. And a lot of things I think he was saying just didn't match up with, like, he would tell a great story, but his actions kind of didn't track with that. Or he was really good at lying. So sometimes his actions would kind of sort of match. So it became confusing. Granted, like she said, this was like an Olympics of red flag situation. So it was very, 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 very like exaggerated in the red flags that she was seeing. Have you had experiences with those kinds of red flags, or what?
I'm very cautious when it comes to dating. I'm very aware of protecting myself because I didn't want to become jaded or disgruntled with my dating experiences. Because to me, if you're bitter and angry and you go out there, you're just going to attract more bitterness and anger. And so I always want to keep myself in a happy, healthy space. And so if it's not working out with somebody, I'd much rather just let them go and preserve my sanity. Because if you take things too fast and too quickly, you can get yourself in a dangerous emotional situation at the least, if not physical. And so I've been very cautious about that. So for me, red flags would be simple white lies, even guys who would lie about their height. Because it's like, well, if I'm going to go on a date, I'm going to see you. So and if you're lying about your height, which is so obvious, you're probably going to be willing to lie about other things. So for me, that's definitely an initial red flag. Politeness, being respectful. If you ask somebody out on a date, the expectation is that you're going to pay. It doesn't mean you have to pay for 10 drinks a night, but if we're only having one or two, the person who asked the person out, is particularly as a gentleman, I would expect that you would at least offer, if not outright pay, because I'm quite capable of paying for my own drinks. But like, I just recently went on a date, and we went to happy hour, and when the bill came, he of course offered to pay, which was a good sign. I still left a $10 bill to go towards the tip for the bartender, just because he insisted. So that's a good sign. And so we're probably going to go on another date. So things like that are green flags and red flags. Like, how do you treat people? Are you rude to the wait staff? Are you arrogant? Are you self-involved and you don't ask me any questions? For me, those are all red flags.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. Um, you've been dating a while. We always like to kind of ask and find out, how would you define your version of no ordinary love? How will you know that you found this person when you meet them? How would you define that?
I think, again, like, the values work together. We have similar aspirations. In my experience of dating, I'd say a really good friendship, someone that you can be honest with, someone who's positive, someone who's uplifting, somebody who has dreams and goals of their own and has actualized. I mean, at this point, I'm in my 40s, so I want somebody who has also actualized on some of their goals, as I have. I had a dream to go to graduate school. I've done that. I wanted to run a half marathon. I've done that. Like, I want to see follow through. So for me, a no ordinary love would be somebody who really lives out their values and is a kind person, a loving person, funny and happy. Yeah, for me, it'd be like a healthy, happy relationship would be a no ordinary kind of love. Like, maybe in the past when I was younger, I'd be more concerned about the money. But now I'd say, especially now that I can take care of myself to the best of my ability, money's important, success is important, but the values and how the person treats you are just as important, if not more important.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Like, it's so much more so about the values. Those are the things that I need. And I feel like those are the things that sustain a relationship over time. Because if I can take care of myself, then I'm not really looking to you for that. Maybe their goals we'll have in between ourselves that are financial, but like, am I going to be emotionally safe with you is really key for me as well. So
Yeah.
that's great.
And I would say no ordinary love is a love that would be long lasting. So it has to have those values. It has to have those um, base level, positive, foundational parts of a relationship in order to go the distance.
Okay. Well, now that we've kind of talked about what no ordinary love is, we're going to move into the relationship rundown segment of our program. And this is where we unravel today's love trends. We'll be exploring different trends based on viral stories or just stories out there on social media or in the news. So, our very first video this week from our theme of red flags is taking accountability versus deflecting. And feel free to ask me questions as we discuss these videos as well. So, the first video, in line with our theme for the week about red flags, is taking accountability versus deflecting.
Take accountability without deflection. All right. What do I mean by that? One, if the individual is not taking accountability for his actions early on, that's a problem regardless. It's not just taking accountability with you. Does he take accountability in his life in general? If he doesn't, that's a problem. But it's not just not taking accountability, which is bad enough. But sometimes people will verbally take accountability, but they'll do so with deflection. It's like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done this, but this person did this.
That is like so important. I think what was really key to me is, and you alluded to this in the way that you date as well, is the idea of like, how are they even behaving with themselves? How are they behaving with the wait staff? Because if someone isn't behaving in a certain way, regardless of how they treat you, because in the beginning of a relationship everyone is on their best behavior, so at this point they may be polite to you, they may do all those things, but how are they treating people that they are not going to get anything from, that there's no exchange, like the wait staff? How do they treat their own funds or finances? Because it's not going to get better down the line. This is the best it's probably going to be at the beginning of the relationship. So it's really important to be cognizant of that, and I think make sure, or just discern for yourself, if is this level of accountability adequate for you. And the other thing I found really interesting about what he said is the idea of like deflection. The people who take accountability, yes, but there's always a reason why you're to blame as well. And I've definitely had that experience in relationships where people say, where a partner in the past would say, yes, I was wrong, but it's your fault that I wasn't able to complete my work on time.
Yeah.
Because I had to help you with your work, I couldn't complete my work on time,
Right.
when
Right.
they had more than adequate time. So, kind of, what are your thoughts on the video and
I
how
mean,
it was?
I agree with the advice. I think it's really sound advice. And I love that he was able to really separate the two different ideas of like what it looks like to take accountability and then what it looks like to take accountability half partially and then deflect and make it like a whataboutism, which is like, yeah, I've done this, but then like you also did this, which just kind of dilutes the accountability. But then to me, nothing gets resolved then because the person who needs to resolve the issue is brushing it aside and putting it on someone else. So that's definitely a red flag. Like, you definitely don't want a partner who's not willing to get into the muck of things, who hasn't developed enough empathy and sympathy and self-reflection to be able to look at the things that they don't do well and be honest about them, even if they're ugly and painful, and being willing to change the behavior. I mean, to me, that's just what it means to become an adult. So when you go out and you're dating, if somebody isn't like this, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Like, I don't want somebody who is afraid to be a grown up. Like, yeah, I'm fully in my grown up era, and I need somebody who is comfortable with maturity. And even if they're not, they're willing to still step in that direction at the very minimum. Because the things that I want to do with my life and the places I want to go require somebody who is willing to look at themselves and look at whatever the situation is and not just push it under the carpet. And if you want to live that transparently, sometimes it's hard to meet people because a lot of people are living lies and living in ways that they just put blinders on. They just pretend like this isn't really happening. I don't really have to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that it is. It's amazing. I read this statistic once that most people do not examine or self-reflect whether or not you're using therapy as a mode or some other mode. Most people do not self-reflect. Only about 1% of the population actually does the level of self-reflection or the level of work on themselves that will put them in a healthy direction. And that's probably what is responsible for so much of the lack of accountability in relationships. And like you said, it's not critical that you have it all, but are you at least aware enough of even the idea that accountability is necessary? And some people are
Yeah.
just not even aware or in that space at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's a dual thing, right? Because you both parties kind of have to be aware. And if you think about the who the fuck did I marry? Risa Tisa is the name of the lady. Risa is the name of the lady, I think. Um, it speaks to why was she so receptive of the lack of accountability? Like
Yeah.
what? Because any relationship is a tango. It takes two to tango, right? So, in as much as this person is not being accountable, why are you allowing yourself to be in a position to accept this lack of accountability is also a critical thing
Well,
to
I mean,
consider.
I've only seen a couple episodes of the Who the Fuck Did I Marry? And from me, what I can garner is that she was willing to ignore the red flags because she wanted to be in a relationship,
Hmm.
um, more than she wanted to be in a healthy relationship or a good relationship. And so she got what she wanted. She was in a relationship. It was just insane and unhealthy and scary. And like, I always just felt like a palpable fear with everything she was talking about, because I think initially they rushed into trying to buy a house and he was lying about whether or not they were qualified to own the house. And in fact, somebody else had already purchased the home, but he was saying they could still get it. So it was a false narrative. He was pretending to be somebody he wasn't. And so, but those were big purchases. A home, that affects your credit. That is huge. Like, these are not things to play around with. And I'm just a much more cautious person. So like, no, I'm not going to just blindly believe you. Like, but luckily for her, she did find out he was lying. and she was keeping tabs by keeping a journal. I think that's partially what saved her, because even though she was willing to put on the blinders, there was a still silent little voice in her that was like, this isn't right. And that listening to that voice is what saved her ultimately, because it could have
Yeah.
been worse, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think her having the courage to eventually listen to herself, because sometimes people stay in situations like this for years, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
definitely want to highlight that part of like, and we learn our biggest lessons from mistakes. We don't learn from being perfect. So I think it's definitely worth highlighting what you said. So I think that was a great discussion of that first video. The next video talks about major red flags, which I think is great discussion point.
Four signs, four red flags to me in any kind of relationship. If I see any of these things, do not pass go, do not collect $200. We got to get up out of here. So let's get into it, family. Number one is manipulation. One thing I cannot stand is when I feel like I'm being played, duped, manipulated. I'm extra sensitive to that. I'm maybe a little bit paranoid, y'all. I'm always thinking, what's the motive? What's the motive? But really, if I feel any kind of manipulation, I gotta go. Number two is inconsistency. I want to see that someone is a person of their word. If I can't trust you to to follow through on your own word, yeah. Number three is a lack of accountability. Y'all, I can't stand a person that dodges accountability and tries to blame everybody else for their issues. Number four, somebody who wants to be pursued. Y'all, I'm looking for a leader, and that includes in the dating process. All right, y'all, here are four.
Okay, I'll let you get started with kind of what you thought on this
I mean, I
video.
agree with everything she said, particularly the last comment of looking for a leader. I want to say that in some ways, I like a much more like old school approach to dating, where the man leads when it comes to asking you out, planning a date, especially in the beginning. But as time goes on and you establish that you guys want to be partners, then it would be 50-50 going back and forth. And being a leader doesn't necessarily mean just paying for the dates or taking me on fancy dates. It's taking the initiative to ask somebody out, to follow through on meeting them and showing them a good time, like just being a grown up. I think like not every date or dating situation is going to lead to marriage, but it could be so much better than what we're all experiencing out here, because people are just using people as a means to an end. And it's not healthy and it's not fun. It's not even fun. But I totally agree with her other red flags of, someone who's not willing to take accountability, that's always shuffling here and there, that you have to argue with them to get them to a place where they finally accept responsibility for whatever or they've done or whatever they think. Like, that's too stressful. Like, that's again not fun. Just be a grown up, take accountability for things that you've done or said. Sorry, what were the other two things that she mentioned?
She mentioned manipulation and
Yeah,
inconsistency.
that's toxic to me. So that's a no-go. Because what's the point of being like, if you're manipulating someone, then you don't want them to be themselves. You want to control them and you want things to be how you want them to be. And then that's not a relationship, because a relationship is about getting to know that person. They get to know you and they accept you for who you are, not necessarily where you are. Like everybody wants to get better in their lives, but they accept you for who you are intrinsically as a human being. And so if you're trying to manipulate somebody or control them, man or woman, doing that's not healthy. Like, then you want a robot. You don't want that person.
Yeah, no, those are all great points. I think the one that resonated the most with me is the manipulation. Like this is one where run, stop, no go, we are getting out.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in relationships where I have felt so unsafe. I didn't even have the language for what that meant, and just understanding, learning from those experiences. The kind of relationship I need is where I have emotional safety, for sure. It's not a, a thing of compromise, because what I need are those emotional security safety nets. Where I want to go, like you said, I don't need someone who is playing games at this point in time. Like I want someone who's a partner who wants to get
Mm-hmm.
somewhere with me, together,
Yeah.
So like it's just not fun. And in this season I want I want to be with someone who like I can have fun with, enjoy my
Yeah.
time with them, let it be a respite, let it be a sense of peace for me, from all the kind of struggles or challenges of the world. So that's really, really critical and important to me. And the inconsistency is another one, because I feel like it's important to show who you are. And then if the other person is being inconsistent, it makes it so much easier to cut off in the beginning of the relationship. If they can't even show up on time to the date. And I get it, people are late. DC, there's tons of traffic in the DMV. But if it becomes a pattern now, then that's something that you definitely need to address. And I don't think there's a lot of talk. I mean, this doesn't go into that about dates being expensive. I actually don't like very expensive first dates, because you don't know. You don't know if you're gonna like this person. You don't know how it'll be. And I'm there to get to know you, and you're there to get to know me. And I feel like the first dates, low pressure situations. And that allows you to see more clearly whether the person's being consistent or inconsistent as well. So definitely agree with all her red flags, and the ones of manipulation and inconsistency are the ones that really kind of resonate with me as well. So now we'll go to the third video, which is about toxic relationships.
Help you to find out if you are in a toxic relationship. Sign number 1 is gaslighting. If you don't know what gaslighting is, it's when a person consistently denies your truth. So you say something that you know they have done and they deny it. They say it never happened, to the point where you even consider if you are being right or not. Sign number 2 is manipulation. If you don't know what that looks like, it's when a person has complete control over the way that you think, the way that you feel, and they just always find a way to manipulate the way you see things. Sign number 3 is going through periods of love bombing and stonewalling. And that means you go through periods where the person is completely ignoring you, giving you silent treatment. And the next minute they turn around and they completely love bomb you. And they tell you you are their soulmate and everything you want to hear. Let us know in the
So, have you experienced, we kind of talked about the manipulation piece a bit, but have you experienced gaslighting or love bombing in any of your dating situations?
Maybe like microdoses of those. Not gaslighting so much, but like love bombing where people sort of like disappear on you and then show back up. Yeah, definitely some of that. But I think these days they might call that crumbing, where someone just kind of like keeps you going, but like with little bits here and there. Yeah. But I mean, typically I think when that happens, the person might be seeing other people or they just preoccupied with something else. And so dating is not the priority for them.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely experienced both. In terms of love bombing, I would say, like just even like crumbing, maybe more crumbing. I've been on like some of the apps, and then someone messages you like weeks later. And like it was a funny situation where this guy, first of all, he used a different name on the app than his real name. And then I think towards the end of our chat, he told me what his real name was, but I had him saved in my phone already as his real name, as his chat name. So when he called me and he said his real name, I was like, "Who are you?" He
Oh,
was
wow.
so mad at me for doing that. But then I didn't hear from him, and then I heard from him like weeks later. In fact, I think I just heard from him again a year later. I didn't respond, of course, but like it, people literally do that. They
Yeah,
just
they do.
go hot and cold, like you're not a human being, or like you should be sitting around just waiting for them, and then
Yeah.
getting upset that you're not doing that.
Yeah, I actively try not to indulge in that. Like if someone disappears on me, like that's kind of it. You know, like I've definitely lost real interest. Obviously, they can contact you because they have your information, but whether like I'm no longer actively pursuing that person or interested, because it takes the motivation and takes the air out of the dating. Again, not fun.
Mhm. Well, I'm definitely on block brigade.
Yeah.
If you do that, I just block you. I can't remember why I did block this guy, but like he's blocked now, so you're definitely not contacting me again. I'm definitely much quicker to cut things off now than I was
Mhm.
before, and I think it's so important. It's not just the red flag. I think the key about the red flag, which is what Risa Tisa eventually did, is recognizing it for what it is and protecting yourself. So, like for me, when I see a red flag, depending on what it is, sometimes I feel like a red flag is an invitation to kind of find out more. Like, I see you, and you find out more by talking about the objective behavior. You contacted me now, and you didn't contact me for after a few weeks or a few days. Why is that? Why did you do that? Is it, oh, I traveled on an emergency trip, it's unusual, or is this like a regular way of behaving? Because then you can find out the information you need and make a decision based on the information said, behavior, or like what they're saying, whether it makes sense or not. So I think initially I see a red flag as like, let me ask a question to find out a bit more information, and if it makes no levels of sense, then obviously you cut the person off, I think, at that point in time. um, do you think differently about that?
I mean, I think as long as you don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable, like I sometimes will keep numbers because I want to make sure that if that person does contact me in the future, I know who I'm talking to for safety reasons. Um, if I mean, yeah, it's like just check in with yourself. If it feels like this isn't going to go anywhere, I would not encourage lying to yourself, I guess, right? So,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
absolutely.
But then, yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah, but like eventually people just like, if they're not serious about you, they're going to go away. It's going to end.
Yeah, I mean, it's how much energy you entertain back and forth. If they're not getting
Yeah.
what they want out of it, psychologically or otherwise, then they're gonna go look for the person who's gonna give that to them.
Yeah. And pretty much what
Inevitably.
I do is like, if I feel like this person is not taking me seriously, I disengage. I put my energy into something else. Like I started traveling a lot more since last fall because there was somebody I was seeing. They weren't really paying me that much mind. And I wanted somebody to go and do things with. But then I realized this person's never going to really do anything with me. So like I just got about my business and focused on planning trips that I could go on by myself and it just got more into my own life. And so if they contact me, great. If they don't, okay, whatever. I'm in my own life.
Yeah. No, 100%. Just being in your life makes the world of difference,
Yeah,
and then you kind of put the dating in perspective when you do that. And it's
exactly.
not this big thing. It's just one of the things you're doing in your life. And then if
Yeah.
something comes of it, you can engage in that way.
Exactly. Like my ear is always on the ground. If I meet somebody and if I meet a man and he seems interesting and engaging and he wants to ask me out, oh yeah, I'm totally open to it. Am I actively pursuing dating right now? Not so much. I have other things going on, like my career, my social life, like with my friends and family that I know will guarantee returns. And so I put my energy more into those things.
Yeah. No, like same with me with this podcast. Like I have so much fun doing it and talking with people and having conversations that I used to have ordinarily anyway, but I just get to have them every week now. So
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy it. It's
And
something
they're on
that I
record.
love. Yes, they are. They're not going anywhere. With the gaslighting, again, it's something unfortunately that I've experienced in prior relationships where people deny your very reality and you feel like you're going crazy. In relationships where like money has been involved and the person has said to me I'm loaning them money and we agreed it's a loan, and then all of a sudden they act like I lied to them about that, and like it's not true, that there is no loan. So like I've definitely been through that, and I think the thing I would make with this is like, you get power from owning it. I had to like search myself and wonder, yes, this person did this, but why was I in that context? Because before even getting to a context with someone where you would maybe potentially loan them money, there were probably other red flags that I missed. And why did I miss those red flags? and being aware of that, I think, has allowed me to kind of move the ability of people to engage with me in that manner back, so it wouldn't in this version of me, in this stage of my life, it would never get to that point
Mhm.
of engaging with someone in that manner,
I
as
see.
far as I'm concerned. Yeah. You were saying?
No, 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 I concur. I agree. I just said I could see that. Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Okay, the next video that we have then is the why do we, yeah, this is a good conversation. Why do we ignore red flags?
Why do you think we ignore those red lights when we see them?
And not only in love, but we have relationships where we get in them and it doesn't quite live up, but we think we can coach them up. We think we can kind of mold them. We're giving ourselves credit, like, I can change this person. And usually there's some things you can, but usually those red lights and those yellow lights in relationships are like, hey, if there's any time that the person that I'm interested in is showing their best behavior, it's now. All right. If anybody's overselling who they are, it's now. It's not going to usually get better. If anything, it's going to drop down to more of a realistic place where you're going to go, oh, I saw the signs early. And now they're just even more illuminated.
Why do you think we
I'll let you have the first go at it. Why do we ignore red flags?
Well, I mean, we want to believe things about people. We want, again, I think it's a slight kind of like control thing. You want someone to be something that they're not because you need them to be that in your life instead of going to go find the person who is that. But maybe you like the package this person comes in, or you like certain things about them, or it's that timing in your life. And so you just mold people into whatever you want, but it doesn't really work because that's not who they are. So eventually, like someone told me, the bill is going to come due. You're going to have to deal with the reality of who they actually are. And so in the long run, it just wastes your time. So that's why I'm not really interested in that game, because you're better off going to go find the real person that has those attributes and behaviors that you want, instead of trying to manipulate someone else into being something else that they're not. Yeah. Plus, I feel like I'll always know. I will always know that they're not who I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The danger of what, like you alluded to, is that even if you're able to like go along with this for a period of time, because you always know, you get to a point where you just end up resenting the person, and you can't even say why, really. You may
Yeah.
not be able to articulate why, and then the whole relationship just falls apart because
Exactly.
you were
Yeah.
never fully in it. You were never fully in it because you would never were fully connected to this person in the way you
Right.
need to be connected in order to have that no ordinary love that we talked about in the beginning, for the love for the long term, because you feel like you've sold yourself short regardless of that person. And I think there's another element which in the recent Tisa video, there's a sense of desperation sometimes,
Hmm.
um, of feeling like, oh my God, I'm at this point in my life. I need to be with a person. I need to be in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna hang on to this person and make it work with this person. Even
Yeah.
if that person isn't even hanging on to you, you're
Yeah. I
gonna
know. I
somehow
mean, yeah.
Jedi mind trick them. Yes, please go ahead.
No, no, no. I mean, a few people come to mind that I know who tangentially that are in that situation, and they might even have all the money and all the career and all the things, but when it comes to this area of their lives, because they could manipulate and make these other things happen, they'd bring that to people. But you can't control people. Like the way you can manage your career, you can't control people. So they ignore red flags, and it's a very dangerous place to be. Because at the end of the day, you are responsible in that dynamic. As much as you might be mad at this other person for being somebody they're not, you also allowed them into your life. So yeah, and yeah, it doesn't work out in the end. It just doesn't.
It always takes two to tango, and when you recognize that you're lying to your own self, it can lead to being depressed, it can lead to being anxious. And I'm thinking of people that I know as well in my own life where they have all the things, but they're so depressed. The
Mm.
level of depression to the point where they can barely get out of bed some days,
Yeah, that's rough.
which is really rough, and all because they feel like everything else in their life is working perfectly, but this one area, and they're in it now. They're wedded to the idea of being in this
Yeah,
context, and they can't bring themselves to remove themselves from the context. So it's
yeah,
really, really, really sad. Or even the idea that there's someone we know who says this: you can mold the person. You should
yeah. You
mold the
can't.
person into what, and you can't
Yeah.
control anybody.
I mean, there's a
So
reason most people are getting divorced, right? Because I think they try to do it, and then they realize after 20 years it didn't. It's just impossible. Let me go find somebody who makes me happy. This is
yeah.
not going to work.
And the level of effort and time, I mean, it's like choosing where are you going to spend your effort and time. Are you going to spend your effort and time in molding, or are you going to spend your effort and time in living your best life and attracting this person and
Right.
letting go of the timeline of when they may show up or not, or maybe possibly not show up? Because I
Yeah.
think, if I'm not mistaken, there are more women in the world than they are men numerically. So, like, not everyone may end up marrying
Yeah.
someone, no matter who they want to marry at the end of the day, no matter what gender or whatever. So some people are just going to maybe be single for the
Yeah.
rest of their life, and being
Yeah.
okay with that, being comfortable with that, is definitely something uh, that but another thing I also find is that once you release the outcome and you're just in your life, no matter what area of life, that's when that thing you're looking for, you tend to attract it. Then it tends to
Amen.
come to you.
From your lips to God's
Yeah.
ears. Yep.
Amen. um, okay. So I think that was the last of the red flag video. So that was the end of our relationship rundown segment. Was there anything else you wanted to say that struck you, or any question you may have had for me?
No, I mean, this is really insightful. It's always good to think and refresh about these ideas and topics. I think you're doing a really great job. This is a great podcast, a great forum to have open discussion. So I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's great. We got one more segment, the group chat. So from the
Mhm.
group chat, we just get questions, listener questions that have been sent in, and we have a couple this week.
Okay.
So let's go through those. The first question is, I'm tired of my parents interfering in my relationship and constantly asking me about my partner's life. I'm fine telling them some things, but I'm just sick of them prying. How can I get them, especially my mom, to back off?
Hmm. I guess establishing boundaries, right? And respecting, asking and then having a conversation, asking your parent to respect you and your partner's privacy and not to interject. I mean, whether or not they do that is a separate issue, but at least going through the motions and making that request.
hmm No,
Yeah.
absolutely, you're right. I think boundaries are for you. And I think it took me a really long time to understand the boundary setting is for you. And with boundary setting is not just stating what you would like the other person to do, it's thinking at the same time as you're telling that person what you would like to do, what consequence are you willing to put in place to ensure that the way in which you need to feel safe in this context, you want to keep your relationship private. What consequence are you willing to put in place? And just because you're family doesn't mean you should. In fact, you need even better boundaries so that you can have a loving, healthy relationship with your family. But it becomes a really hard and difficult thing to establish if you're not used to having boundaries, especially like in the context in which we've grown up with, where there's a cultural aspect of being communal, and certain things may seem like disrespectful, even when you're not intending them to be. And then you get caught in that cultural dynamic. But I think, like you said, being very clear on what it is you need and expressing that to the person in a respectful way. And then if I don't know if you live with your mom, or like if you can limit the contact you have with your mom, and also they're prying doesn't mean you have to say anything. You hold the key to not sharing information with your mom,
Yeah.
or so it's also you being responsible with what you're sharing with her. And instead of sharing, you know, redirecting the conversation in a direction or with a topic that you feel comfortable with, I think is another way to kind of handle the situation as well. And having a neutral third party, if you need someone to share information with, that you can go share information with, like a therapist or a friend that you're comfortable with, so that you don't feel that need innately or internally to share with your parent. Okay. Second question we have is, as I get older, I've noticed my interest in dating is starting to wane, but I also want to start a family at some point. I'm trying to figure out how can I balance building my own life with the desire to have kids and a wife. But honestly, I'm just not interested in dating at all, and I wish I could skip to the end result. Do you have any advice for me?
No, that's a tricky one because you kind of have to get in the game to meet somebody if you want to have a family. I don't know. You can't. I mean, short of mail order bride, I don't know what you're gonna do here. That's tricky. I mean, yes, dating is
Yeah.
uncomfortable. It's not fun for anybody. But if you want a relationship with someone, you have to make yourself available. Maybe do activities that you think the other gender will also participate in, so that you can be around people if it's another gender or the same gender. But get yourself involved in activities so that you can actually meet somebody. You don't need to formally do dating apps if you don't want to. But you're not, like they say, no one's going to just show up at your house. You have to get out there in the world.
Yeah, it reminds me, I don't know, of these memes where the person's all dressed up in their house and like, okay, partner, come meet me here.
Yeah. I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
If it was that easy, I'd be married. Look, I look fabulous today.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, you just kind of have to get out there. And I think we've kind of talked about it. Getting out there, doing the things that you love to do, getting out there, doing the
Mhm.
things you really enjoy. You love traveling. So traveling is an activity a lot of people enjoy. As you travel, especially as you solo travel, I think it becomes much easier to meet someone else on the trip that you can engage in a conversation with or learn about. And I think traveling, you can like define it in different ways. Sometimes traveling could be just going to a park by
Oh
yourself in
yeah.
the
Yeah.
summertime, you know.
Definitely.
um, Very, very simple things, just moving away from where you are, where your local environment is day to day, and engaging with new people, engaging in activities that you enjoy, so that when you meet someone, you're meeting someone that shares the value of that activity with you together, and you're enjoying yourselves in that way. So I think that that is a really critical thing to do if you want to date, especially if you want to start a family. And it sounds like this person is male, but even for men too, I think, because I've known, as I've gotten older, I've heard of people where there is male factor infertility. Something that may kind of relieve the pressure is storing your sperm or storing your eggs, so that when you are able to have kids, and there are certain genetic mutations that are resulting from the male partner. The younger you are, the healthier your eggs are, the healthier your sperm is. So storing them at an early age, I think it should become standard practice. Can kind of relieve some of the pressure and tension from wanting to have kids, or pressure and tension not wanting from needing to have kids by a certain time. Surrogacy is really expensive. I know a friend who's going through surrogacy at the moment, and it's very expensive to do. But that can also be another option or a way of relieving the tension or the need to get to it by a certain date or time frame. But you kind of have to put yourself out there and be out in the world, doing the things you love, doing the things you enjoy, in order to be able to attract to you um, the kind of partner that you want to have a relationship or a life with, for sure. Okay. So that's kind of this. I can't believe we're already at the show. Those are all the questions we have. Those are all the videos we have for today. This was really nice. I really enjoyed it. Like I don't know if you heard from the recent Tisa situation. She actually is, I think, getting sponsored by the Hilton.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, so one of the things she said in the video is that she wanted um to go on a trip. That was one of the things he lied to her about, taking her on a trip to the UK, and he like printed off an itinerary off the internet and made it seem like he bought tickets for her. So
Wow.
they've obviously, the whole story has gone worldwide and viral. So they're sponsoring a trip for her to go to the UK. So I'm really
That's good.
happy
He
for her.
deserves it.
Oh, 100% after all she's
Yeah.
been through it. And I think that she's also mentioned that she did some therapy. So this is a form of her kind of sharing her story so that people can learn from it. And there's just so much to learn from the situation and from the opportunity. And the fact that she's sharing positive things are now happening for her, I hope that is the case. The guy she was dating actually kind of revealed himself as well, publicly. So he said everything she said was a lie, but trusting my instinct from just the manner in which he was sharing his side of the story, I didn't believe anything he was saying from his end. But I think karma is a real thing, and all these red flags that people are displaying or engaging in, what goes around will come around on some level. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for her, for sure. Okay. So where can people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about you, if they want to...
There's always LinkedIn. Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way to get in touch with me. Yeah. Just send me a message and I'll reach out.
Okay, so we'll definitely get your social media contacts, your social media handles, so that you can, so that people can get in touch with you. Any last words for the people out there?
No, healthy, happy dating. Everybody, get out there and enjoy yourself, at the very least, and enjoy your life.
Yeah, and be safe too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Joe. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to the No Ordinary Love podcast. I'm your host, Josephine Onah, reminding you that extraordinary love is out there. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Until next time, embrace your own unique love story.